I'm Tracy Carver, 31 years old, a real estate developer in Austin, Texas. Last month, my parents and sister showed up at my condo expecting me to hand over $1 million. Not for an emergency, not for my own dream, but for my sister's dream mansion. The same sister who got a fully paid college ride while I worked 3 jobs and drowned in student loans. The same parents who said they had no money for my education, but somehow funded Natalie's entire life designer bags. Paris trips, you name it. Their nerve still floors me. If this hits home, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your story in the comments. I want to hear how you handled family pressure. Let's get into it. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Austin, Texas, my family looked picture perfect from the outside. Nice house, 2 cars, friendly barbecues with neighbors. But inside there was always an invisible line drawn between me and my younger sister, Natalie. My parents, Roger Carver and Vicky Carver, both had steady jobs. Dad managed an auto dealership, Mom was an accountant. We weren't rich, but we never went hungry. Still, from my earliest memories, Natalie, 4 years younger, was the golden child, and I was the one expected to fend for myself. I noticed the difference early. When I was 7 and showed an interest in drawing house plans, sketching little dream homes on graph paper, Mom smiled but said we couldn't afford art classes. Maybe next year, Tracy, she'd say, but next year never came. Meanwhile, when Natalie at 5 twirled around the living room pretending to be a model, my parents enrolled her in a fancy fashion camp the next week. It wasn't cheap, hundreds of dollars for a summer of glittery costumes and runway lessons. I didn't begrudge her the fun, but the contrast stung. Birthdays told the same story. My 10th birthday was a homemade cake and a new sketchbook, practical, useful. Natalie's 6th was a blowout at a local party venue, complete with a bounce house, a face painter, and a dozen screaming kids. Natalie's more outgoing mom explained when I asked why my parties were so small. She needs these big events to shine. I nodded, swallowing the hurt, already learning to keep quiet. Christmas gifts followed suit. At 12, I got a set of pencils and a math workbook to prep for middle school. Natalie, 8, unwrapped a sparkly new tablet and a pile of trendy clothes. Dad patted my shoulder. "You're the responsible one, Trace," he said. "You don't need flashy stuff, you're going places with your smarts." That was their narrative. Natalie was the dazzling one who needed attention, and I was the practical one who should focus on hard work. It was a box they put me in, one that justified giving me less while expecting more. I internalized it, pushing myself to excel. By high school, I was pulling straight A's, dreaming of studying architecture at the University of Southern California. USC's program was top tier, and I'd seen their campus on a school trip, modern buildings, vibrant energy, a place I could become someone. I worked tirelessly, joining every club, volunteering anything to boost my college applications. Natalie, meanwhile, coasted. She was popular, always surrounded by friends, her Instagram already filled with curated selfies by 16. My parents indulged her every whim. When she wanted to attend a summer fashion workshop in New York at 13, they paid thousands for it, flights, tuition, even a new wardrobe. When I asked for a drafting software subscription to practice architectural design, Dad said it was too expensive. "You're doing fine without it." He shrugged. I saved my babysitting money for months to buy it myself. The disparities piled up. At 15, I got a part-time job at a local coffee shop to save for college, waking up at 5 for weekend shifts. Natalie got a brand new convertible for her 16th birthday, a shiny red car she barely drove because Mom chauffeured her everywhere. "She needs it for her social life," Mom said, as if my life didn't matter. I'd bike to work, rain or shine, while Natalie's car sat in the driveway. By senior year, I was valedictorian, my USC application ready to go. I'd been accepted with a partial scholarship, and I was over the moon. I could see myself there, designing buildings, making my mark. At our family dinner after graduation, I was buzzing with excitement, ready to share my plans. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Tracy, we need to talk about college." He began folding his hands. My heart sank. USC is a great school, but it's way too expensive. We just don't have that kind of money. I stared at them confused. But we've talked about USC for years, I said, my voice shaking. You always said good grades would get me there. Mom jumped in. College costs are out of control, honey. We're proud you got in, but you'll need to figure out the finances. I pushed back. What about scholarships? I got some, but USC still costs about $30,000 a year after that. They exchanged a glance. That's just not doable for us, Dad said. What about the college fund? I asked. Surely they'd saved something, both had decent jobs. Another glance. We started one. Mom admitted, but there were other priorities. Home repairs, family trips. Dad added, and Natalie's car. She needed reliable transportation. I looked at Natalie, who was scrolling her phone, oblivious to the conversation gutting my future. That reliable transportation was a car they'd bought her 6 months earlier while I was still biking to work. So there's nothing, I whispered, fighting tears. Nothing for my education, Dad leaned back. You're the smart one, Trace. We always knew you'd find a way, scholarships, loans, whatever. Natalie's going to need more help when her time comes. There it was, the truth I'd always felt but never wanted to hear. My hard work was used against me. Because I was the smart one, I was expected to scrape by while Natalie got everything handed to her. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried until my eyes burned. USC. My dreams slipped away. The summer after graduation was a haze of desperation, filling out scholarship forms, researching loans, anything to close the gap. But without parental support, USC was impossible. I swallowed my pride and enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin, which offered a decent architecture program and a partial scholarship. It wasn't USC, but it was my only shot. I knew I had to make it on my own. Enrolling at the University of Texas at Austin wasn't my dream, but I made it my reality. With a partial scholarship covering half my tuition, I still faced a $20,000 gap each year. My parents, Roger Carver and Vicky Carver, offered nothing, not a dime, not even encouragement. You're smart, Trace, Dad said, as if that solved everything. You'll figure it out. So I did, but it came at a cost I never expected. While my sister Natalie floated through her teenage years, I dove into a grueling routine that shaped who I am and hardened me in ways I didn't see coming. That first semester, I built a schedule that left no room for error. I worked opening shifts at a campus bookstore from 5 to 9 in the morning, attended architecture classes from 10 to 2, then waitressed at a downtown diner from 4 until midnight. Between shifts, I squeezed in study sessions at the library, surviving on black coffee and leftover fries from the diner. My dorm room, shared with 2 other girls, was more a crash pad than a home I'd stumble in past one study until 3, and wake up 2 hours later to do it again. My first semester GPA was 3.6 solid, but lower than my high school perfect 4.0. It scared me. My scholarship required a 3.5 minimum, and I was cutting it close. I was exhausted always. Dark circles carved permanent shadows under my eyes, and I dropped 10 pounds I couldn't spare. Friends, I barely had time to make them. Dating, forget it. Meanwhile, Natalie's Instagram told a different story. At 17, she was prepping for college, posting about spring break trips to Miami and shopping sprees at high-end boutiques. My parents covered her private school tuition, gave her a monthly allowance, and even paid for a professional photographer for her senior portraits. College is so stressful, she texted me once, complaining about choosing a sorority. I read it during a 10-minute break at the diner, my apron stained with ketchup, and felt a knot tighten in my chest. Stressful, try, working 60 hours a week while passing calculus. Coming home for holidays was torture. My first Thanksgiving break, I dragged myself back to Austin, hoping for a warm welcome. Instead, Mom and Dad fawned over Natalie's stories about her prom dress and college applications. When I mentioned my jobs, Mom frowned. 2 jobs. Tracy, isn't that hurting your grades? I gritted my teeth. My GPA's 3.6, I said. "That's fine," she replied, "but don't you need hire for your scholarship?" No acknowledgement of my effort, just worry I'd lose the aid that kept me from asking them for money. That Christmas, Natalie got a designer handbag and a trip to Paris with her friends. I got a gift card to the bookstore, useful, but it screamed afterthought. I stopped going home after that citing work or exams. Truth was, I couldn't stomach the comparison anymore. My saving grace was Monica Platt, my dorm mate who became my best friend. Monica, a PR major, saw how I was struggling and left snacks on my desk when I got back late. Her family, both teachers, welcomed me for breaks in Houston. Over their Thanksgiving table, they asked about my designs, my goals, treating me like I mattered. "You're killing it," Tracy, Monica's dad, said, and I nearly cried. Those words meant more than he knew. Monica became the sister I wished. Natalie was cheering me on without expecting anything in return. By sophomore year, I adjusted to the grind. I swapped the bookstore job for a paid internship at a small architecture firm which let me work remotely sometimes. It eased the pressure slightly, and my GPA climbed to 3.8. I still waitressed, but cut back to 3 shifts a week. I was surviving, not thriving, but I was getting closer to my degree. Natalie, meanwhile, started at Baylor University, a private school known for its social scene. Her Instagram overflowed with sorority parties, football tailgates, and new outfits. My parents paid her full tuition, rented her an off-campus apartment, and gave her a credit card for essentials. She'd text me about skipping classes because morning lectures are brutal after frat parties. I'd read those messages during late-night study sessions, my laptop screen blurring from exhaustion, and feel something inside me harden. Senior year brought a flicker of hope. My internship turned into a part-time job, and I designed my first real project, a community center for a local nonprofit. It wasn't fancy, but seeing my plans come to life felt like proof I was on the right path. My GPA hit 3.9, and I landed a full-time offer from the firm after graduation. My ceremony was bittersweet. I'd invited my parents, but they had a prior commitment, a weekend getaway with Natalie to celebrate her junior year. "Send us photos," Trace's mom said over the phone. Monica's family showed up instead, cheering when I crossed the stage. Her mom gave me a leather-bound planner with my initials, a gift more thoughtful than anything my parents ever gave. That day, I realized I'd built a life without them. Graduating in a tough economy wasn't easy. The firm's offer was modest, $45,000 a year, but it was a start. I moved into a cramped Austin apartment with 2 roommates pinching pennies like I did in college. I packed lunches, skipped happy hours, and poured every spare dollar into my student loans, determined to chip away at the $60,000 debt hanging over me. My coworkers, talented architects, became my mentors. I soaked up their knowledge, staying late to learn software, refine designs, and tackle projects others avoided. The work energized me in a way my college jobs never did. I was creating, building, using my mind the way I always knew I could. While my peers spent their paychecks on trendy lofts or weekend trips, I stayed frugal. Therapy was my only splurge. I started seeing a counselor to unpack the family dynamics that left me feeling unworthy. "You've been conditioned to believe you don't deserve ease," she said. "You think you have to earn every scrap of comfort." It was hard to hear, but it clicked. I'd spent years proving my worth through work, unable to accept praise or ask for help. Slowly, I began to heal, recognizing that my parents' favoritism wasn't my fault. After 2 years, my dedication paid off. I was promoted to project manager with a salary bump to $75,000. I doubled my loan payments, chipping away at the debt faster. By year 3, I'd earned a reputation as a problem solver, someone who could handle tight deadlines and tricky clients. I joined a professional network, attended conferences when I could, and met Clifford Henson, a veteran real estate developer who saw potential in me. "You've got grit," Clifford said over coffee at a conference. "But who are you working so hard to impress?" His question stuck with me. Was I still trying to prove something to parents who barely noticed? At 28, I took a leap and started my own small real estate firm focusing on sustainable housing. It was terrifying long hours, endless paperwork, and a $50,000 business loan to cover startup costs. But it paid off. By 30, I'd paid off my student loans, bought a modest condo, and saved a nest egg of $250,000. I'd done it, built a career, a home, a life without my family's help. I texted my parents a photo of my condo keys. "Just bought my place," I wrote. Mom sent a heart emoji. Dad replied, "Nice work, kid." Natalie didn't respond. I wasn't surprised. Our contact had dwindled to holiday texts and forced birthday calls. They knew where I worked, where I lived, but nothing about my struggles or triumphs. It was easier that way, keeping them at arm's length to shield myself from their indifference. I thought I'd left the past behind until they showed up at my door. The doorbell rang while I was reviewing blueprints for a new project. I almost ignored it, but something nudged me to answer. Standing in my hallway were Mom, Dad, and Natalie, all wearing uneasy smiles. "Surprise," Mom said, arms open for a hug. I stiffened but let her pull me in. "We were nearby and wanted to see your place." Nearby, they lived 3 hours away in San Antonio. Nobody drives that far for a casual visit. I stepped aside, letting them in. Their eyes scanned my condo hardwood floors, modern furniture I'd picked out carefully, a wall of bookshelves holding architecture texts and novels. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. "This is nice," Dad said, his tone surprised, like he'd expected less. "You've done well, Trace." Natalie wandered around, picking up a vase, setting it down, barely hiding her boredom. She looked different, polished, with a designer jacket and manicured nails, more put together than the last time I saw her 2 years ago. "Hungry?" I asked, falling back on hospitality to mask the awkwardness. "I can order something." We ended up around my dining table with takeout pizza. The conversation stuck on safe topics: traffic, Austin's growth, the weather. Natalie scrolled her phone, barely touching her slice. Halfway through, Dad cleared his throat, a signal I knew too well from childhood. "We need to have a family meeting," he said, leaning forward. My stomach twisted. Family meetings in our house were never discussions, they were announcements. "It's about Natalie," Mom added, glancing at her. Natalie sat up, suddenly attentive, a diamond ring glinting on her left hand. "Gavin proposed," she said, thrusting her hand across the table. "We're getting married next year." "Gavin?" I asked, realizing how disconnected I was from her life. "Gavin Dempsey." Mom filled in her voice, warm with pride. "A financial analyst from a good family. They've been together a year." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Congrats," I said, meaning it despite our distance. Natalie beamed, pulling out her phone to show me an Instagram board labeled "Dream Home." Photos of sprawling mansions filled the screen: marble floors, infinity pools, chandeliers. "We're buying a place together," she gushed. "It's going to be epic, perfect for hosting, building our brand. Gavin's family knows all the right people." I listened, puzzled. Why were they telling me this? We hadn't been close in years, and I doubted I'd even get an invite to their wedding. The talk shifted to the mansion, a 5-bedroom estate outside Austin, listed at $1,500,000. "It's an investment," Natalie said, tossing her hair. "The location's hot, and it'll only appreciate." Dad nodded. "That's where we need to talk, Tracy." My guard went up. "The thing is," Mom said, her voice soft but calculated, "there's been a financial snag." "Snag." I repeated my pizza, turning to cardboard in my mouth. Dad leaned in. "Gavin's parents were supposed to chip in for the house, but they backed out, said it's too extravagant for a starter home. We've already put down a non-refundable deposit, $50,000, based on their commitment." Natalie jumped in, her voice sharp. "They're being ridiculous. $1 million home is standard for our circle. Anything less is embarrassing." I stayed silent, pieces clicking together. So Dad continued, "We're hoping you can help with the cost." I blinked, sure I'd misheard. "Help?" How Mom smiled, like it was obvious. We know your business is doing well. We're asking you to contribute to the house about $1 million. The number hit like a freight train. $1 million. For a mansion Natalie and Gavin wanted to build their brand. I set my plate down, my hands steady despite the anger bubbling inside. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice calm but cold. You want me to give you $1 million for Natalie's house? It's not just a house, Natalie snapped. It's our future, our status. The connections we'll make there are priceless. Mom nodded. You don't have a family to support, Tracy. You've always been good with money, Dad added. This is about family, Trace. Natalie would do the same for you. I nearly laughed. Would she? When I needed help for college, I said, my voice rising, something that would have changed my life. You said you had nothing. Now you want $1 million for a mansion. That was different, Mom said, waving it off. You had scholarships. You were fine. I stared at her. Fine. I worked 3 jobs, Mom. I was so tired I nearly flunked out. I lived on diner scraps while you paid for Natalie's apartment, her clothes, her trips to Paris. Natalie rolled her eyes. God, Tracy, that was years ago. Let it go. You're still holding a grudge. A grudge, I repeated, incredulous. I'm still paying off $60,000 in loans while you got a free ride through college, and now you want $1 million from me. You owe me, Natalie said, her voice hard. You've been distant forever, acting like you're better than us. This is your chance to show your family. That broke me. Years of buried hurt surged up. I owe you nothing, I said, standing. You've been handed everything while I fought for scraps. Now that I've built something, you want to take it? No way. Dad's face darkened. Family helps family, Tracy. That's how it works. Since when I shot back. When have you helped me? You didn't come to my graduation. You barely know what I do. This is the first time you've seen my home, and you're here asking for $1 million. The room went quiet. Mom's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. Natalie grabbed her purse, glaring. I knew you'd be selfish, she spat. You're so proud of your perfect life all alone because you're so special. Dad stood. If this is how you feel, maybe we don't need to stay in touch. I didn't flinch. That's your call, I said, my voice steady. But I'm not being blackmailed financially or emotionally. They left without another word, the door closing with a thud that echoed through my condo. I stood there shaking, feeling both free and shattered. For the first time, I'd stood up to them, but the cost was a chasm I wasn't sure could be bridged. The fallout came fast. Natalie posted a vague Instagram story the next day. Some people call themselves family but vanish when you need them. It got hundreds of likes, her followers piling on with comments like "Stay strong, girl" and "You deserve better." I didn't respond, but the sting lingered. Then the family pressure kicked in. My Aunt Glenda Stovall called first. Tracy, what's this about you refusing to help Natalie? She asked. Your mom's heartbroken. I kept my voice even. It's private, Aunt Glenda. She pressed on. Family pitches in. When my son got married, everyone helped. Did anyone pitch in $1 million? I asked. She paused. Well, no, but Natalie deserves her dream. Similar calls followed, cousins, uncles, all echoing the same script. I was selfish, family comes first. The worst came a week later. I overheard a client mention a rumor that my firm was unstable, sparked by a competitor who'd caught wind of the family drama online. My heart sank. Natalie's posts weren't just personal, they were threatening my career. Then I got a text from Mom. We had to borrow money to keep the deposit. Things are tight now. I stared at the screen, realizing they'd taken out a loan, likely high interest, to chase Natalie's mansion. As family drama exploded, my career started to shake. I confided in Monica, my best friend, over coffee at a quiet Austin cafe. They're acting like I owe them my entire life, I said, my voice cracking. Monica's eyes flashed with anger. They didn't lift a finger for you in college, and now they want $1 million for a mansion. That's insane. And dragging your name online, toxic. She urged me to fight back, maybe post my side of the story, but I shook my head. That's Natalie's game, not mine, I said. I just want this to stop. Monica squeezed my hand. You've got to set boundaries, Tracy. They'll keep taking until you do. Her words echoed what my therapist had been saying for years, saying no wasn't selfish. It was survival. The pressure didn't let up. Mom sent a group text to our extended family claiming the mansion deal was collapsing because I refused to help despite my lucrative career. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me calling me cold, ungrateful. I was drowning in their accusations, questioning if I'd been too harsh. Then a text from an unknown number broke through the noise. This is Gavin Dempsey, Natalie's fiancé. Can we talk? Just us. I hesitated. Gavin had stood by Natalie during the fight at my condo, but his tone seemed different, less hostile. Curiosity won out, and I agreed to meet at a downtown coffee shop. Gavin showed up in a crisp suit, looking uneasy. After small talk, he got to the point. Natalie's devastated about the house, he said, stirring his latte. Your parents are talking about taking out another loan to cover it. I frowned. Another loan they already borrowed for the deposit. He nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah, a high-interest $150,000. They're in deep, Tracy. I didn't know until recently. My stomach churned. High-interest loans could spiral fast, especially with Dad's modest pension and Mom's accounting job. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Gavin leaned forward, lowering his voice. There's more. Natalie has credit card debt, $75,000. She says it's normal, but I only found out last week. I thought you should know what's going on. I sat back, stunned. Natalie's lavish Life Designer bags Paris trips had been built on debt, not just my parents' handouts. She never told me any of this, Gavin added. She said you're jealous, that's why you won't help. I shook my head. Jealous? I worked 3 jobs through college while she got everything. I'm not jealous. I'm done being used. Gavin's face softened. I'm starting to see that. I don't know how to fix this. I left the meeting conflicted. Gavin's honesty shifted something in me, but it didn't erase Natalie's betrayal or my parents' manipulation. Back at my condo, I called Clifford Henson, my mentor, for advice. They're trying to guilt you into saving them, Clifford said bluntly, but you didn't cause their mess. Protect what you've built, Tracy. His words grounded me, but the thought of my parents losing everything gnawed at my conscience. I couldn't shake the image of them drowning in debt for Natalie's dream. The breaking point came when my cousin, Corey Stovall, a lawyer in Houston, reached out. Tracy, this family's falling apart, he said over the phone. I'm neutral here. Let's get everyone together and talk, no yelling, just facts. I was skeptical, but agreed. Corey set up a meeting at a neutral spot, a private room at a San Antonio restaurant halfway between Austin and their home. I drove down, nerves frayed, unsure what to expect. Mom, Dad, Natalie, and Gavin were already there when I arrived, the air thick with tension. Corey moderated, laying ground rules. No interruptions, no accusations. Dad spoke first, his voice heavy. We're in trouble, Tracy. The loan's eating us alive, $10,000 a month in interest alone. We might lose the house. Mom's eyes were red. We just wanted Natalie to have her dream. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I get that, I said. But why is her dream my responsibility? You never supported mine. I begged for help with college, $30,000 a year, and you said no. Now you want $1 million from me. Natalie cut in, her voice sharp. You're obsessed with the past, Tracy. I'm trying to build a future. I turned to her, my anger flaring. A future on debt, Gavin told me about your $75,000 credit card bill. You're not building, you're sinking, and you're dragging Mom and Dad with you. Natalie's face paled, her eyes darting to Gavin, who looked away. Mom gasped. Is that true, Natalie? Natalie stammered. It's under control. Corey raised a hand. Let's stick to facts. Tracy, what do you want? I paused, Monica's words echoing in my mind. Boundaries. I won't pay $1 million, I said, my voice firm. I can offer $20,000 to help with the loan interest, but only if you meet with a financial advisor to fix this mess. And the pressure stops. No more texts, no more posts. Dad's face hardened. That's not enough, Trace. Mom shook her head. It's insulting. Natalie stood, grabbing her bag. I knew you'd let us down. Gavin stayed silent, his eyes on the table. The meeting ended with no resolution, my offer rejected. Driving back to Austin, I felt hollow but resolute. I'd stood my ground, but the cost was clear. My family might never see me as more than a resource. Back home, I sat at my desk, staring at a blank page. My therapist had suggested writing a letter to process my feelings, not to send, but to clarify my truth. I poured everything into it: the hurt of being overlooked, the anger at being used, the boundaries I needed to move forward. It took hours, my pen shaking as I detailed years of unfair treatment, from childhood gifts to college rejections. I acknowledged my silence, how I'd let their narrative define me for too long. Writing it felt like shedding a weight I'd carried for decades. I folded the letter, unsure if I'd send it. For now, it was enough to have said it, even if only to myself. My project at work was still shaky, the client wavering under the rumors. I threw myself into damage control meeting with partners, reassuring them of my firm's strength. The letter sat in my drawer, a quiet anchor as I fought to save my career. The letter set me free, but the story wasn't over. The sustainable housing project was back on track after weeks of reassuring clients, but the family drama left scars I couldn't ignore. I'd set boundaries, refused to pay $1 million for Natalie's dream mansion, but the cost of fractured family still stung. Yet something was shifting, and the story wasn't over yet. A week after the meeting, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was subdued, not the usual guilt-trip tone. Tracy, we've been thinking about what you said, she began. We didn't realize how much we leaned on you or how little we gave you growing up. I stayed silent, wary. Dad got on the line. We thought we were doing right by both of you, he said, but we see now we favored Natalie. We're sorry, Trace. The apology was clumsy, not the full reckoning I'd hoped for, but it was a crack in their armor. I didn't trust it completely, but I felt a flicker of relief. Thanks for saying that, I replied. But I need more than words. I need respect, real boundaries. They agreed to try, though I knew change wouldn't come overnight. Natalie's response came later, unexpected. I was at my favorite Austin coffee shop sketching ideas for a new project when she slid into the chair across from me. She looked less polished than usual, no makeup, hair in a messy bun, almost vulnerable. I didn't call first, she said, fidgeting with her cup. Figured you might say no. I closed my sketchbook, bracing myself. What do you want, Natalie? She took a deep breath. I owe you an apology. Gavin told me what you said about college, about how Mom and Dad treated you. I didn't see it before. I was too caught up in my own world. I studied her, skeptical. You called me selfish for not giving you $1 million, I said. You posted it online for everyone to see. She winced. I know. I was angry and wrong. After the meeting, I started noticing how Mom and Dad always bail me out. They never let me figure things out, and it's messed me up. I'm $75,000 in debt, Tracy. I didn't even realize how bad it was. Her voice cracked, and for the first time I saw not the golden child, but someone lost. I'm sorry for everything, the mansion, the posts taking their side all these years. You didn't deserve it. Her apology wasn't perfect, but it was raw, sincere. Something in me softened, though I kept my guard up. Thanks, I said. That means something. But apologies don't fix everything. She nodded, twisting her napkin. I know. How did you do it? Build all this, your firm, your life without help? I paused, surprised. Instead of handing her money, I offered something better: knowledge. We talked for an hour about budgeting, paying down debt, using credit wisely. I recommended apps and books that helped me claw out of my $60,000 student loans. This stuff's basic, I said, but nobody teaches it. She scribbled notes, her eyes focused. Can we do this again? She asked as she stood to leave. I could use a sister. I hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. Let's see how it goes. The conversation didn't erase decades of resentment, but it was a start, a fragile bridge between us. My parents stopped asking for money, and their calls became lighter, focused on small talk rather than demands. It wasn't the close family I'd once craved, but it was honest, and that was enough for now. Natalie moved forward too, taking a job as a social media manager to tackle her debt. Gavin stuck by her, though their mansion dreams were shelved for a modest townhouse. The shift felt surreal, like watching a script I'd known my whole life rewrite itself. I turned my focus inward, investing in myself in ways I'd always postponed. With the savings I'd protected, I enrolled in an international real estate management course, a 6-month program with online modules and a trip to London. It was a chance to grow my firm globally, something I'd dreamed of but never dared. Monica Platt cheered me on, calling it the ultimate power move. Clifford Henson. My mentor nodded approvingly. This is for you, Tracy, he said. Not to prove anything to anyone else. He was right. For the first time, I was choosing myself without guilt. I also started a small scholarship fund for architecture students at the University of Texas. It wasn't much, just $5,000 a year to cover books or fees for one student, but it felt like closing a circle. I'd been that kid scraping by, dreaming big. Maybe this could ease someone else's path. I hope to grow it someday, make a real dent for kids like me who had no one in their corner. Looking back, the pain of my family's favoritism shaped me, but it no longer defined me. Monica Clifford and my chosen family showed me what support looked like, celebrating my wins without expecting a cut. My parents and Natalie were learning slowly to see me as a person, not a resource. Forgiveness didn't mean erasing the past. It meant letting go of the anger so I could move forward. The greatest gift I gave myself wasn't my condo or my firm. It was permission to put myself first after a lifetime of coming last. If you've ever had to draw a line with family, you know how hard it is. Have you faced demands that crossed your boundaries? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for following my journey, and here's to finding your own path, no matter who tries to pull you back.